Welcome to Om Times TV, a division of Om Times Media and Broadcasting. Welcome to the Perfect Life Awakening Show, hosted by Royce Morales. Royce has been a transformational facilitator, teaching groundbreaking, spiritually based courses for more than 4 decades. She is the author of 3 books about her teachings. Join Royce as she takes you on a journey into how to live your best life and find your true purpose through discovering the origins of subconscious, disempowering notions and releasing them. She talks with experts and inspiring people just like you who learned to trust their intuitive inner wisdom, which led to life-changing shifts. Today, her guests live an empowered existence and are helping change the world to a higher consciousness place based on truth and love. You deserve to awaken to, align with, and embody your true self and live a life filled with love. Transform yourself from triggered to empowered and create your perfect life. Here is your host, Royce Morales.
Hello, everyone. Welcome, and I'm so glad that you're with us today. I was just listening to the little blurb that was played right before this, and it said, helping to change the world to a higher consciousness place. And my guest today is doing just that in such incredible ways, ways that just have blown my mind. And I've had him on my show before. We both didn't remember that he was on my show before, but yes, he was. And so,
culpa.
whatever. I forget after a minute who's been on my show. I've done so many of these, but you really made an impact, I have to say, Scott, that what you talked about the last time was phenomenal. And today you've taken it even further in what you're offering people. So let me just tell you guys a little bit about Dr. Scott Taylor. He had 2 incredible shared death experiences, which he will explain. And that led him to begin his research into near-death experiences. And he did this research academically, not just, out there in woo-woo land. And then he has discovered that he can use guided meditations to help people safely, easily, and without trauma to experience near-death experiences, and what life-changing things will happen from that. Because anybody that's had a near-death experience, their life is never the same. But to do this in a conscious, non-traumatic way is pretty phenomenal. Needless to say, and I'll have them talk more about this, people live more fulfilled lives, and because they stop having fear of death. What a great thing that would be for the entire world to suddenly stop being afraid of death. Not because they're reading about it or because their religion tells them that they're going to go to heaven or something, but because they've personally experienced it. So that's a real important teacher. So Dr. Taylor is a spiritual teacher, author, and he created what he calls In the Light, guided meditations to near-death experiences. And he, of course, basically is saying the same thing I'm saying, that it's one thing to read about it and have knowledge about it. It's another thing to experience it. So welcome, Scott. I'm so glad you're here again.
Thank you, Royce. I've been looking forward to our conversation. See if I can remember the last one. Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah. No, I remember that you talked about your shared death experiences, but that's all I remember. So anyway, tell us your story. Tell us how all of this has unfolded for you.
Would you like me to do kind of a little synopsis of my shared death experience?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. Tell it all of it.
So this is back in 1981, and I was in love with a woman. Her name was Mary Fran. And Mary Fran and her son Nolan had been out sailing on a beautiful Lake Washington in southern Minnesota. And on their way home, they were involved in this horrific car accident. And Mary Fran was killed outright. And Nolan, who just turned 7, sustained a mortal head wound, and it took him 6 days to make his transition. Luckily, because we were in southern Minnesota, both of them got transported to um, Rochester, where the Mayo Health System is, and they received terrific care. But it was the injuries were just too severe. Um, so the whole family, Mary Fran was one of nine, and my family was, there's a whole bunch of us there, like 40 or 50 of us that were holding vigil for Nolan. And when it came time on the morning of the sixth day, um, the nurse on the floor came in and said, his vital signs are going down. It's going to be soon. So we all piled into this little bitty hospital room. And as luck would have it, by the time I got into the room, it was 4 or 5 deep around the bed. And I wound up sitting on the windowsill next to Mary Fran's youngest brother, Willie. And when Nolan's heart monitor went flat, when it didn't work anymore, and um, when he flatlined, what I experienced was Mary Fran coming across the veil and scooping Nolan up out of his physical body.
Wow.
And they had this exquisite reunion, as you could only imagine, between a mother and son. And it surprised me, not that they had the exquisite reunion, but that I could feel what was going on. And then, Royce, what surprised me even more was that the two of them turned and came over to me, embraced me, and then the three of us left and went to the light. And as you've heard on this show, or from anybody who's had a near-death experience, it's extraordinary. The love and compassion and unity and this connectedness with everything, it is so outside of anything that I could have imagined. It I didn't have word for it at the time, but none of that actually really mattered, because what was important was I was there with Mary Fran and Nolan in the light, and we had a chance to affirm our love and affection for each other. We had a chance to say a proper goodbye, because I was at work when they were coming home in the car, and then we had a chance just to be together for a while. And then when it felt complete, um, Mary Fran and Nolan turned and went further into the light, and I came back to my physical body sitting there on the windowsill next to Willie. So that's part A of my story. Do you want to ask any questions, or should I continue?
No, that's just incredible. And so when you came back to your body, you fully remembered what happened. Did you share it with any of the people there?
Not a chance.
Yeah.
No, it was, I mean, I grew up as a mainline Presbyterian,
Mm.
and this idea that you could witness somebody coming across the veil, that you could have conversations with them, that you could go with them into the light, that is not part of the lexicon of the Presbyterian Church. I'm just
Yeah.
telling you.
Yeah.
So, and it was so outside of my small town Midwest upbringing that I didn't have words for it. I didn't have a context for it. I I didn't have anybody to talk to about it. It just it so I kept quiet for probably 15 years. It was a
Wow.
long time. It was a long time. Yeah, and part of it was I I didn't have the ability to explain what happened to me, because if you read anything about research into near death experiences, usually the common element number one is this great English word, ineffable, which means we really don't have English words to describe that experience. We can come close, sort of, kind of, but not really. And so when I tell people my story, it's like, this is what happened, but it's a facsimile of what happened, because there's still, to this day, 40 years later, I can't. It's I'm getting better at it, but it's really difficult.
Yeah. Wow.
So the second part of the story is that I'm sitting there in the hospital room on this windowsill, and I've just had this experience with Mary Fran and Nolan in the light, and I've come back to my physical body. But I also had the experience of, not only was I with them in the light, but I was also in the room with the grieving friends and relatives. And the way I like to describe this, Royce, is that I was 100% with them in the light, and I was 100% in the room with the grieving relatives. It wasn't
Interesting.
50-50, like,
Yeah.
somehow my consciousness had split to be in two places at once. It wasn't like that. It was like I really was in two places, and all of me was in both places. And I know this because I'm sitting there on this windowsill, and I'm in this ecstatic state with being in the light. And I realized that it was like the light and love of the universe that is inside me, and it's trying to break out of my body. And it's showing on my face, because I have this huge grin, and, and a beatific expression. I mean, I was just so happy to be with them and to be in this space of love and compassion, that I knew that if anybody looked at me in that moment, that they would have completely misunderstood. I mean, because,
Yes.
Mary Fran had died 6 days before, and Nolan had just died moments before, and here I am, and so I did the only thing I could think of, which was to, put my hands over my face
Oh, wow.
so that people wouldn't see. And I stayed like that until, um, that other part of me that was in the light came back into my body, and I could regain my composure. I could put my hands down, and then I was able to join in with the the people in the room and do what grieving people do. It's hugging and crying, and it was just incredibly sad.
Yeah.
So I didn't have a word for it then. I do now. It's called bilocation, where I was
Mhm.
up
Uh-oh.
there in the light with Mary Fran and Nolan. And
Yeah. You froze for a second there. Can you repeat that last sentence?
sure, um, I was in the light with Mary Fran and Nolan, and I was in the room with the grieving relatives. So um, yeah. So it took me a while before I could, get myself together, so to speak, and then I was able to do what grieving people do, and you hug and you cry, and it was just incredibly sad.
Yeah.
So that's part B of the story. There's one more part.
Okay.
Okay, part C goes like this. Um, I'm doing my doctoral work at the University of St. Thomas in Minnesota, which is Minnesota's largest private university. And I'm looking for people to interview who've had near death experiences. And I'm having a hard time. I thought it was going to be easy. I just go to hospices or, you know, uh, places where people have had, traumatic injuries. But there's a thing called HIPAA.
Mm.
And and the hospital staff is very nice, and they go, "Well, we'd love to help you out, and I'm sure it would really help out our people, but we can't tell you that. That's medical information." And
Mm.
okay. So what I did in desperation is I sent out letters to Mary Fran's sisters. They had all wound up in healthcare as one form or another, saying, I would really like to, I'm doing this research and I wonder if you could help me connect with somebody who might have had this experience so they could be part of the study. And lo and behold, one of the sisters who chooses to remain anonymous, so I'm going to just call her the sister, wrote me back and said, "Hey, Scott, I, you know, you know, 10 years after Mary Fran and Nolan, I had a near death experience. I'd love to tell you about it."
Wow.
So I said, "Great." So we set it up. We perform the interview. She tells me about her NDE. I'm recording it and taking notes, doing all the things that academics do. And then we get done. I shut off the tape recorder and I'm packing up. And this thought occurs to me. And it's this, that I said to her, "You know what? When Nolan made his transition, something really unusual happened to me in the hospital room. And I'm wondering if anything unusual happened to you too." And she looks at me and her eyes just get just like big as saucers. And I took that as a yes. So I unpacked my stuff and I started the tape recorder and I said, "All right, tell you what, why don't you tell me your story first? And then I'll tell you my story and then we'll compare notes and see." Okay, Royce, this is what she told me. She said, "Scott, I remember this exactly. I was standing on the bedside opposite of the room where you were. You were sitting on the windowsill. I was on the other side of the bed looking at you. And when Nolan made his transition, what I experienced, I meaning I'm speaking like the sister, she said, what I experienced was um, Mary Fran coming and she crossed the veil. She scooped Nolan up out of his physical body. The two of them had this exquisite reunion. The two of them then turned to me, embraced me, and the three of us went to the light. And when we were in the light, we had a chance to affirm our love and affection for each other. We had a chance to say our goodbyes, and we had a chance to be together for a while. And then when it felt complete, they went further into the light, and I came back to my physical body there, standing next to the hospital bed.
Wow.
She used the exact same words as I did to describe the experience. It went down to the smallest detail. We had the same experience. Now, I didn't see her. She didn't see me. And that could be, that's a dimension thing, a time thing. That part of the non-physical world kind of confuses me at times. But we didn't recognize her, but we had the exact same experience. And in an instant, what that meant for me was that I had my experience validated.
Yes.
And if I had any doubts at all, was it because I was reading things or I heard something, blah, blah, blah. None of that. It just poof, it just disappeared. It went away. And the reverse is true. She'd never told anybody except for me. And she said, "Oh, I can now be at peace with that experience. I know that it was real and that I had this experience, with my older sister, and it was extraordinary with both the two of them."
Wow.
So um, it propelled me into this into doing my research and getting involved in near-death experiences in a way that I hadn't really anticipated, which was I became in, really involved with the International Association for Near-Death Studies. I, finished my doctoral degree and wrote, my dissertation on it, and then later figured out that there's a way to help people who would like to have this experience and like to gain the wisdom from it, but honest to gosh, they really don't want to go through the physical trauma
Right.
of
Yeah.
having a car accident or having a heart attack or dying in childbirth. I mean, it's like, thank you, but no.
Yeah. Really. Yeah.
So I um, I wound up, yeah, spending the rest of my life talking about what's the afterlife and what is the non-physical world, and how is it organized, and how do we gain wisdom from it such that we can live life here in the physical world.
You froze again, Scott. I lost the last part of that sentence.
The last part is that all of this time spending researching near death experiences and learning how to teach other people how to do it is because I know that the wisdom that comes from the non-physical world allows us to live a better life here in the physical world, filled with more peace and joy,
Yeah.
or
So,
words to that effect, whatever I
yes,
said before.
that's perfect. So, how did you discover a way to assist people in doing that? Tell us that story. That's amazing.
Sure. Um, well, one of the after effects of near death experiences typically is this intense curiosity. That's what just got me, because I knew that if I had been there once in the light with Mary, Fran, and Nolan, that I could do it again if I could only figure out how to do it. So I put myself on a quest, and I didn't know where to start. I, Nothing, So I figured, well, there's a bunch of sacred sites around the world. Maybe there's some of that juju still left there at these sites that would allow me to, propel me into the afterlife, and I could go and do that again. So I went to Stonehenge and Machu Picchu and the pyramids and the Oracle of Delphi. I mean, I went to all of these places, and what happened was, oh yeah, I forgot. More cathedrals than you could shake a stick at. And I got terrific vacations out of them. Just wonderful. And I am really blessed to like float down the Nile and go to Peru, and
Yeah.
they were wonderful, but it didn't get me where I wanted to go. And I went to seminary to see if that would help. Again, great adventure. No, I now have even a further, a better academic understanding of the afterlife, and um, and then I had a friend recommend the Monroe Institute to me,
Mm.
and the Monroe Institute was founded by Bob Monroe, who wrote this fabulous book about out of body experiences
Yeah.
and what he was able to discover. And so I went there. And the first program that you attend is called Gateway. And they use a particular type of technology, binaural beats, that allow you to enter into expanded states of awareness. I did that. And sure enough, I was propelled into that space again. I got to see Mary Fran, and I went back for a second course called Guidelines, and I was able to establish a real relationship with Mary Fran and Nolan, and have the ability to, communicate with those on the other side. And a year later, I went back and said, I love this work. Can I help? And they said, well, you want to be on our faculty? And so I have. So I was with the faculty of the Monroe Institute for 35 years, was their executive director for 2.
Wow.
And in that process, what I learned were their techniques But the way Bob explores the non-physical universe is a different cosmology than the way that near-death experiencers do.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah.
used his techniques of guided meditation and binaural beats and found my own binaural beats that took me to those key places of a near-death experience, and then said, okay, we're going to follow the path that's laid down to us by those who've had a near death or shared death experience, because that road is really well traveled. Millions of people have had near death experiences. And as it turns out, if you just jump into that energy stream, it's relatively easy to experience the kinds of things that near death experiencers have.
Wow. That's interesting. I was thinking about Robert Monroe and how, well, you've explained it perfectly, that it's just a different realm that they're going to. He's like getting out of body, and you're saying we're going somewhere with this. So,
Yep.
wow.
He likes to teach the classic out of body experience,
Mhm.
and I teach what happened to me in the hospital room, bilocation, where
Yeah.
you can be in the physical world and you can be in the non-physical world at the same time. And as it turns out, it's a whole lot easier to teach than the classic out of body. And so that's what we use in my courses and on my albums and things, because it's very effective and it's gentle and it allows you to kind of ease into it. And as I've said before, all you have to do is wear headphones. You don't have to do the trauma thing. It's just, it's
Yeah.
lovely.
So you've mentioned a couple times that there's, I don't know, learning experiences from doing this, shifts in consciousness,
Hmm.
wisdom. Tell us a little bit about what people generally get from these experiences. What is there kind of like universal, this is here it is, here's what everybody's supposed to get type thing?
Now it's your turn. You froze on me.
Oh, and you just froze. Okay, my question was, is there something universal that people generally experience or learn or shift from these experiences?
Sure. The first part is, we can take people to the key common elements in a near death experience, like when you lift out of your body, there is an escort, a guide that will take you to the light. And what is really helpful is to use the tunnel as a mode of transition. Once you're there, there's a reunion with your dead relatives, and then you get to be picked up by a divine being, a being of light, who escorts you into a realm where you can have a life review. And then once that is over, you can enter into what's known as the park, which is that area of life between lives. And you get to explore where our true home is. Each one of those is operates at a certain frequency, and so you can adjust the binaural beats, that technology, to lead you into the frequency of that space. So there's a space that's really nice, a frequency that's really nice to meet your guides. There's another one that allows you to enter into that tunnel, which is a wonderful energetic transition from here in the physical world to the world of the light. And there's three different kinds of light that you can enter into. In that place where there's a reunion, the place of life review, and certainly the place of park, all of those have a frequency that you can adjust using um, a different cake mix, a different mix of frequencies using binaural beats, and it just makes it easier to enter. And once you enter into it, then it's up to you. And that's what I teach. What are the skill sets you need to have to be able to communicate and navigate in those spaces?
Interesting. So why do you think binaural beats have that much power? What is the energetic factor of that allows for people to do that?
Um, so the a little tech talk here. So what Bob Monroe discovered was a thing called binaural, rediscovered. It's an old technology. It was around since the 1880s.
Hmm.
They discovered that if you take one frequency, say 100 hertz, and another frequency, say 104 hertz, that if you play one into one ear and one into the other using headphones, the body tries to equalize the two tones, meaning the brain. And, one is saying, hey, I'm listening to 100. The other one say, hey, I'm listening to 104. And they try to equalize it. And that uses the same brain structure as, for us to understand where we are in space and where sound comes from and that thing. Anyway, the brain, because it can't equalize two inherently different tones, sets up a third tone, which is the difference between the two, which is four in my example. And if, you know, Royce, if I were to take and play those two tones right now for you and you have the headphones on, it would be a snooze fest. It because four is the frequency of deep sleep. And you'd put them on and you'd listen for a while. And the magic of the human body is that the brain starts to resonate at that frequency of four, and the brain starts to do it on a holistic level, meaning there's not right and left hemispheres anymore. It starts to operate as one unit, resonating at four, and you would just drift off to sleep. The genius of Bob Monroe was that he said, well, that's a wonderful thing to be able to put yourself into that hypnagogic state, but I don't want I don't want to go to sleep. I want to, keep my mind awake. So he thought up, well, what if I set a third tone in there, say at 12, which allows a resonance of 12 and 4. And so now what you have is the body deeply relaxed, and 12 is the state of mind awake, bright, and clear. So the body's asleep, the mind's awake. And from that's the point that he jumped off from when he was doing his classic out of body. And then he started messing with them and trying to figure out which blends of frequencies would take us to different levels. And that was all done by experimentation. He'd grab people, he'd throw them into a bed, and he'd say, here, have some headphones. Tell me what happens to you. Well, later on, um, there was equipment developed, EEGs, and get together a group of a dozen Zen Buddhists and tell them to go to the place where they meet their dead ancestors, and so they get them into a meditative state, and they go, look at that brainwave pattern. It's all the same between all these different monks. Let's reverse engineer it. And so he was able to identify expanded states of awareness and then reverse engineer it, plus play around with it a little bit, going, all right, where else can we go? What else can we do? So all of that is to say that the brain will start to um, vibrate at a state of expanded awareness, like what we were talking about, mind awake, body asleep, lovely state. And our energetic body, who we truly are, that begins to resonate with that frequency too. So our physical body and our non-physical body start to resonate. And so it's easy for us then to match frequencies with, say, our, dead grandma Jenny. And or we want to go to the tunnel. We want to go to that area of life review. We just change up the frequencies, we resonate with that, and it just allows us to match with what's going on in the non-physical universe. And then from there, it's up to us. What do you want to do? Who you want to talk to? What do you want to explore?
Hmm.
And that just opens up tremendous worlds, especially that area of the park, where we live our lifetimes. It's vast. All these centers for learning, healing, regeneration. We can build our own home there in the non-physical world. What are you interested in? There's a center for landscaping. There's a center for learning how to bake. There's a center for lawyers. There's a center for people who love to paint. I mean, it's both professional and artistic. I mean,
Huh.
there are these centers of interest up there that are just remarkable.
Hold that thought, because I want to hear more about that. And I also want you to talk more about, I read on some of your information sheets that there's white light, but there's also black light. And I want you to talk about that a little bit more. And I also want you to talk more about the life review, because that's always interesting. But we
Oh,
need
yeah.
to take a bit of a break, and we'll be right back and hear all about that from Scott Taylor.
See you soon.
Om Times TV. Do you crave joy but feel stuck? Do you go through life feeling constantly triggered and frustrated? Fear is likely the culprit, and subconscious fear is likely sabotaging you. Perfect Life Awakening is a time-tested, spiritually based approach to inner transformation created by Royce Morales. For over 40 years, she has helped people get to the origins of subconscious fears and ultimately help them find their true purpose and a life full of joy. Sign up for Perfect Life Awakening today at roycemorales.com. You deserve to go from triggered to empowered, shifting your life with Perfect Life Awakening. Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Om Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Om Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Om Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Om Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Om Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Om Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
I want to eat apples and bananas. I need to eat apples and bananas. Why can't I eat apples and bananas?
Support the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks to help provide meals to those in need. Join us at feedingamerica.org.
Uh-oh, did we lose him? Come back, Scott. I was talking with Scott. There he is.
Hi there.
You're there. Welcome back, everyone, and talking about some really interesting things here about near-death experiences and how you can have them without dying, which is kind of a nice little gift. And we were just starting to talk about a couple of things. And the first one I'd love for you to talk about is the life review. I've had several guests on here I was mentioning to earlier that talk about that. Several people actually have had very distressing experiences in that realm. But tell us about what you have or what your people have experienced, and maybe an overall theme that they've noticed in life reviews, and what happens from that.
Sure. Um, Typically, what happens is that a being of light will take you into a space where you will have the ability to review your life. Now, I'm going to describe this like it's linear, because that's how our language happens, but very often it isn't. It like you've heard that expression, my whole life passed before me in an instant. Well, that's what it's like for a lot of folks. It just, boom, the whole thing happens at once. Um, but so it's the job of the being of light to be there and to love you through the experience. And the whole idea is that you get to relive your life, everything, and you get to do it from three different perspectives. First, you get to relive it just like you did, with every thought, every sense, every smell, everything that occurred to you in the physical world. You don't get to miss anything. And as you're going through your life, the being of light, if like there's tough spots, they are typically right by your shoulder, and they will ask you one question, which is, what did you learn?
Mm.
What did you learn? And this is not done in a judgmental way. It's done as coming from love, because sometimes we come in and we choose particularly hard lives,
I remember.
and so then it's more like, well, did you live your mission? Were you came into this world to be a jerk? How good a jerk were you? And did you get those lessons? Did you give the lessons that you needed to give to the people on the receiving end? So there's that. So you get to live your life and understand it. Second is that you get to live that life review. You get to relive your life as the other person in the room.
Mm.
So, like right now, when I have my life review, I'll get to understand everything that's going on in your head, Royce. And scary as that might be,
Yeah.
but it's about understanding how your actions and reactions, affect other people in the room. And third is that you get to relive your life again as from an omniscient point of view. So call it God's perspective, if you will. So you can see how this interaction affects not only the two of us, but then how about our loved ones, our family, our community, our nation, and the world as a whole? How does it affect all of human consciousness?
Wow.
So there, call it the ripple effect. It's like, how did that exchange between, say, right now, between the two of us affect you and I and our friends and people who are watching? You get to understand all of it. So it's it's an extraordinary thing.
Yeah.
So two things out of there. One is, in my research, I happened to talk to a woman by name of Martha, and Martha was a self-described jerk, and she came from a family of 12, and when she would go to family gatherings, the most fun she could have was to figure out a way, how soon she could get everybody fighting with each other. So she would tell half truths and bald lies and things just to get people upset, and she just thought that was great fun. And then she had her near death review, and she got to relive it as every other person in the room, and discovered that she was an awful human being.
Yeah.
And she didn't really realize the impact that it had on her siblings, their spouses, their kids. And she was horrified, just horrified that this could ever have taken place. And she came back. Now, you would say this is like a distressing experience that she got to relive how awful she was, but it totally transformed her. And she made up with 10 of her siblings, well, 9 of her siblings, plus she had 2 that she couldn't convince that she had turned a new leaf, and tried to live her life as a truly loving being and giving and support to all those she encountered. She was a magnificent human being after.
Yeah.
After.
Yeah. Well, a question about that, because one of the things that I talk about a lot in my courses is that everyone is in your life to show you something about yourself. So Martha, in her own jerky way, was a great mirror for people to see something about themselves. So yeah, it's great that now she's loving and wonderful, but all those people that needed to see something about themselves by being triggered by Martha are no longer going to get that opportunity. You know what I mean?
Well, let's just say that opportunities don't need to exist forever.
That's true. That's true.
It's those exchanges that are extraordinary.
Mhm.
And well, we all have had somebody who said a word at the exact right time, or there's a book page that falls open, or there's so much synchronicity that's in our life that if we're paying attention to it, can give us great wisdom,
Mhm.
just wonderful wisdom. Um, oh, okay. So here's the second thing I wanted to talk about, because this is worth the price of admission. Anybody who's listening to this broadcast, you just cashed in, because what happens in a life review, you've got this divine being with you who's, helping you live through this experience. One of the things you can do is, say you're at a grocery store, and this teenager behind the cash register can't get it right. They're screwing up the scanner, and you're frustrated, and snip at them. you know well, when I was a kid,
Yeah.
you're being a twit, just not good. Well, one of the things you can do is turn to your divine being and say, "Hey, can I have a redo?" And the divine being will go, "Well, sure. All right." So it kind of like roll back the film
Hmm.
and say, "Okay, go relive it." And this time you relive it and you say, "Any chance this is your first day on the job?" Well,
Well,
yes, it is. We've all had first days, so don't worry about it. You can always fix the paperwork. What's important is the customer experience. Yada yada. You can change the tone in that second round, and if
hmm.
that doesn't work out, you can go, "Can we do that again?" And
Oh,
so you
wow.
get to relive that scene a third time and a
Hmm.
fourth time until you get enough experiences. You go, "Oh, okay, I understand how I could have done this differently, and the kinds of impacts that I could have had on the two of us, our families." Because when you snipped at that poor young girl behind the cash register, she went home and kicked the cat and had a fight with her boyfriend. It So all of this rolls out. Here's the cool part. Each one of those scenarios that you relived is just as real as what we're doing now.
Hmm.
It adds to the totality of our human experience, because all of our human experiences go up into one big database in the cloud someplace. And we become richer as a human species because of your ability to um, take what was a scene that you weren't comfortable and turn it into a scene that you really were comfortable.
Hmm.
Or maybe it was that you were exactly what you're supposed to do. You know, Royce, one of my personal desires is to have a conversation with Judas Iscariot.
Hmm.
For those of you who are Christians in the crowd, you may not, but this is the man who betrayed Jesus.
Hmm.
And when Jesus was organizing his life, he knew that he had to be sacrificed
Yeah.
and that it had to happen a certain way. And so, who would he choose to betray him? It's my belief that it had to be Jesus's best friend.
Mm.
Who else would do that? Who else would, become the pariah for 2 millennia of hatred and misunderstanding about what that role was about? His role was to allow Jesus to be Jesus, and he did it magnificently. So I want to know what that was like.
Mm.
What was the conversation he had with Jesus ahead of coming into the physical world? So how did that line up, and why did you choose it the way you did? I mean, all of that um, is available for us. I just haven't found Judas yet up in the afterlife, but I'm going to keep looking because I think it'll be a fabulous conversation,
Yeah.
taken apart from all of the religious overlays that we've put on it because of our culture and misunderstanding about what it means to live in the physical world. We
Yeah.
came here because we wanted to have experience, and we signed up for a bunch of different experiences. And as painful as some of them are great gifts. So
It's all
it's
chosen. Yeah.
yeah, it's all chosen, and
Well, it's
to
like I was saying
adopt a
about,
different attitude is, I
yeah.
think, really key.
Well, it's like I was saying about your friend Martha. Everybody chose to have Martha in their life, just
Yep,
like Jesus chose to have Judas, to do what he did. So we're all here together doing this dance of learning.
yep.
So we only have a few minutes left, and I know earlier I was asking you about the black light. Can you explain what that is?
Sure. When people go into the light, there's the white light at the end of the tunnel, which you can see that everywhere, right? Um, and I mean, Harry Potter had a white light experience, so I mean, that's pretty easy.
Yeah.
Black light is that space where it's source. It's the space where everything exists before form,
Mm.
and it's the place where you get um, a direct contact with the creator. It's the space where you lose the fact that you're um, I'm Scott Taylor and I'm a husband and I got, stepkids and I got brother and sister. I mean, all of that stuff, the ego just dissolves, and you get to be one with the loving consciousness that is the foundation of our universe.
Mm.
There's also a clear light experience, which is what happened to me when I was with Mary Fran in the hospital room.
Mm.
And that's about discovering that everything in the physical world is made up of energy, and it's all the same energy that comes from that space of loving consciousness.
Mm.
So you get all three: white, black, and clear.
Which is what we're here to learn, all of the above. And we can learn it now. And we will. We will. So we have like 1 minute left. Tell people how to reach you and just one profound thing that you'd like to leave them with.
um, my website, that's the place to go. You can get a hold of me with emails and see all the stuff that I do. That is NDE Meditations, plural.com. So that's short for near death experience meditations.com. And it's easy to get a hold of me there. Um, this world, just love.
Yep.
It's an extraordinary space to be. It's an extraordinary space to discover that we are living this life that is temporary, and that our true nature is that of being one with that loving consciousness of the universe. So
Yes.
enjoy it. It's great fun.
Yeah.
It's available to all of us
Yeah. Yep.
right now.
And the work that you're doing is helping people get there, and that's the work I'm doing too, and we can get there, folks. Yay. Yay. Thank you so much, Scott. And next time you're on, we'll hopefully remember that you were on before. And keep up the good work, and I will see everybody next Wednesday.
Nice being with y'all. Thank you, Royce. I appreciate our conversation.
Thank you so much. Me too.